A New Life Global Ministries, Enlightenment and Transformation, Sedulu House, and Osiris Life Spiritual Services. SeduluHouse.com is the school component of our new nation, where spiritual empowerment through education and training is emphasized. One way that is accomplished is through our monthly webinars. Our webinars are packed with foundational information, rituals, and live instruction to empower your spiritual work. At SeduluHouse.com, you can view our diverse list of topics for this year that range from meditation to sex magic. And you can also register for any of the webinars at your convenience, sign up for our introductory Orisha class, schedule a spiritual reading, and sign up for the new spiritual training course. Enlightenment and Transformation is the media component of our new nation. Here, you can view all of our archived shows from over the years to our current segments. They include Chief Speaks, Masterminds Monday, A New Asafo, Thunderground Thursdays, and Foundational Fridays. You can also visit us on our YouTube channels. They are Enlightenment and Transformation, Orisha Yoruba, and Our New Nation. Osiris Life Spiritual Services is for those who are ready to take the necessary actions to bring your life into holistic balance. Here we offer consistent monthly one-on-one coaching, solutions that are tailored just for you, practical hands-on self-development techniques that will accompany your monthly readings, and customized practical strategies designed for you that guarantee positive results. Simply choose the package that best fits your needs. And last but not least, AlphaOmegaStore.com. The Alpha Omega Store is our online botanica where we offer divination tools, herbs and incense, DVDs, books, and other hard-to-find ritual items. You can also get our best-selling foundational book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. Other great works from our new nation are Shrine and Altar, Solutions for Dysfunctional Family Relationships, and Natural Hair for Young Women. All great books to assist you on your journey. To find out more on how to get involved with our new nation, visit our websites and YouTube channels and be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter.
Peace, 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 peace. Good morning. I had myself on mute there for a second. Welcome, everyone. It's a new day. It's a new day. It's a new day. And you're speaking or hearing Chief Yuya. This is Enlightenment and Transformation. I want to welcome all of you who are tuning in live. I see that the YouTube space is starting to get occupied. And the phone lines, I'm sure you all are starting to trickle in over there as well. You know, today it's a great day because we got to listen to yesterday. For those of you who tuned into the open call panel, you got an opportunity to listen to some of the students' experiences and perspectives and thoughts on this journey and just this work and what the experiences of their actual scholarship or the experiences that their scholarship has actually created for them. And they had an opportunity to share that with everyone. And if you haven't caught yesterday's show, I advise you to go back and check it out. It was an excellent segment where the students had an opportunity to just share with each other and help each other and answer some questions for one another. So beautiful time there. I'm definitely appreciative and thankful and grateful for all of you who participate. However you choose to participate. All right. But either way, I'm thankful for all of you, you know. Yeah. So, you know, we've concluded our discussion surrounding the equinox for enlightenment and transformation I should say the spring equinox, actually, for enlightenment and transformation. We've concluded those discussions and we'll be moving on to a new subject this month, April, you know, coming forth. We'll be moving on to a new subject. So, you know, I urge you all again, if you haven't caught the segments prior, to try to catch up. Try to, if possible, try to listen to them in sequence. Similar to like when you go onto one of these TV or show video websites, I guess like Netflix, you can watch a whole season at once. Sometimes it helps to do that with these segments as well, so that way you can kind of get a sense of the direction. Things are done in a sequential order for a reason, and I find that sometimes uh, when people are not as aware of that order, they tend to maybe ask questions that might be a little bit redundant because they've been answered a couple of times already. So, I urge you definitely to go back into the archives. There's so much information between the different shows that have been done. Not just my shows, I'm saying, but different shows have been done with different students throughout the years and things like that. That there's so many perspectives to tap into in those segments, and I guarantee you, most likely, whatever it is that you're wondering about, it's probably already been spoken about and answered intelligently in some shape, form, or fashion. So, like I said, yeah, we rounded out our month, with the student segment. It's dealing with the equinox, and this one we're dealing with authority going into April. We haven't touched upon the Gregorian of April as of yet, but when we get there, um, we'll be dealing with authority. Okay, I see something in the chat room that says that I cannot be heard on YouTube. Okay, everything is showing me on my end that I can be. So please give me a confirmation on that. Anyone who's on the YouTube side, just write a little note for me, please. And in the chat room, and just let me know if you can hear me or not. Okay, there is a little bit of a delay as well, just so you know, on the YouTube side. So sometimes it comes through a little later. Okay, so I'm seeing Miss Williams is saying yes, I can be heard. Okay, so I think maybe sis, who said that I couldn't be heard, you might be a victim of that delay, that YouTube delay. Sometimes it's a little bit behind, I've noticed. All right, but thank you for letting me know that I can actually be heard. All right, beautiful. Thank you. I see the notifications. So yeah, this month we'll be dealing with the idea of authority, right? And again, all shows that are coming forth, there's a rhyme and reason, there's an order to it, So authority is a key one, and we're going to kind of be looking at it from, as always, you know how we do. We're going to be looking at it from different perspectives and different angles, not just authority in terms of obeying authority per se. But, one of the things I wanted to speak about briefly this dawning, because as you notice, these mid strong, or these, the 7 a.m. shows and the 1 p.m. shows and the 9 p.m. shows, I haven't been doing a full 2 hours, and I'm not going to do a full 2 hours. I'm going to go with the flow of things. So if the message can be given in 5 minutes, the segment will be 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah. And there's several reasons behind that, but I don't need to get all into that. But yeah, so we're gonna deliver a little different, so which I think has been good, because in many senses I've noticed people have been tuning in like on time, a little bit more now. Usually if I'm doing 2 hours, it's people may not tune into 30 to 40 minutes afterwards. They just kind of stumble in, or they call in at the last minute, 5 minutes before the show is going on, real kind of sloppy stuff like that. So now that I notice the times have been a little bit more sporadic in terms of the length of the show, people have been kind of taking it a little bit more seriously, which I think is good, not just for the show, but just in general. It's good sometimes to, take the things that are important to you a little bit more serious than we do sometimes. But yeah, so dealing with this idea of authority, there was a subject or an idea that I wanted to really speak about for a moment this dawning to get us started, on our Monday or our Aj, Ojo Aj, our day of wealth. And one of the things that I wanted to speak about this great sunrise was the idea of thought reform. And specifically, as it relates to our cultural, conscious, or spiritual growth and understandings. I was watching a video over the strong end, well, more so listening to it. I had it playing in the background while I was doing some other work. And there was an individual in the video who was vehemently preaching against certain other individuals in the conscious collectives, and basically, just sharing that he felt that they were not as righteous as they had presented themselves, and that they, were, doing things that were not necessarily for the good of the people. We'll just put it that way. So, he was his delivery was a little too hyped up for me. So I almost started to tune it away, but because it made me want to turn it off, I listened. I said, no, let me push through. So I kind of just kept it going while I was working, and he was just going off and basically sharing why uh some of these individual solutions don't work, and why they don't really have the best interests of the people in mind, and things like that. So um one of the things that struck me as I was listening to this brother expressing his discontent and sharing that he had the answer for the people. He had the answer, and he was willing to give it away, no problem. And he condemned certain people. I don't want to use names because then you might find the video, and I don't necessarily want to promote his video, nor do I want you to feel like I'm condemning him. I'm just using it as as a point of reference. But he expressed that these certain people didn't have the answer. He actually has the answer, and he's willing to give it away for free. And one of the ways that these other people are not about what they say they are is because certain products and services that they provide, they would charge you for. Whether it be different healing modalities in terms of medicines or diagnostics and things like that, it should be free. So as I was listening to him, I thought about the idea of brainwashing, and how a lot of times we tend to try to encroach and impose on people's uh, respectful and divine boundaries because of the brainwashing that we've already undergone. And sometimes even when we come into our conscious understandings, we still come with a strong degree of that brainwashing. Sometimes we don't really know what to call it intelligently. We'll call anything brainwashing that we don't like. Someone says something or presents an idea to us that we're not in total agreement with, and they may feel very strongly about it, and we say, "Oh, you're brainwashed, and you're trying to brainwash me." But most of the time, the most effective brainwashing comes in a form where there's a complete and total buy-in, because there's a totality as it pertains to what the end goal is going to be, and there's a totality in terms of the means to get to that particular goal. You see, and what I mean by totality, it's like whatever a person is presenting to you, they're presenting it to you as the ultimate solution. And I thought about it, and even some of the work that Anu has done, and I have done, and Sons of Sankofa, and all the different organizations that I've created over the years, or been a part of, or co-founded, or whatever, or contributed to. And I honestly, thought about sometimes I guess some of the I don't want to say maybe frustration or bewilderment that people have when they attempt to try to localize or to centralize the doctrine of Anu. I've had someone recently express to me that they wished I would write like a Bible per se. And I almost fell into that trap when I wrote the 14 keys. Prior to the 14 keys, I was going to write a large compendium covering many different areas, from eating regimens to self-defense to spirituality, political thought. And then I said, no, 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 no. That's a mistake. That's the last thing we need. That's what we don't need. It sounds attractive and it sounds cool. And most importantly, it sounds very convenient. But that's the last thing we need, because the truth is, no particular movement has the answer for all of the situations and questions that arise in our lives. And when organizations present themselves, or movements or religions or thought practices or doctrines present themselves as having the full answer to all of the problems that may occur in life, most likely you're dealing with a situation where someone's trying to brainwash you. Okay. So even in Anu, there's an admission, that the thoughts and the doctrine cannot make sense of everything. You see, when you're dealing with environments of brainwashing, what they try to impose upon you is that they can make sense of anything that occurs in the world. And there are some situations that arise that I don't have an answer for. Even when you go back to indigenous studies, there were certain things that arise in the psyche and in the everyday going ons of those living in the Anglosphere and in Western society that honestly our ancient indigenous wisdom does not have an answer for, because we didn't have those type of situations. We didn't have those type of ailments. There's a whole proliferation and subculture of single parenting that exists in the Anglosphere that we didn't have a lot of answers for, because that wasn't necessarily an epidemic that we had to deal with on a consistent basis. Certain things that were a rarity and that still are a rarity in our indigenous cultures, are the quote unquote norm in the Anglosphere. You see, so if you are a part of an organization, or organization presents something to you and says that they have the answer for everything, you kind of have to look with a bit of a suspicious eye, because most of the time when that's occurring and that idea is being presented to you, what that organization is attempting to do is to shut down your critical thinking faculties. You see, so the idea here is that if you have a movement, or you have and I knew a movement more than anything, because I'm not big on organizations or anything like that. It's just a movement. But if you have a movement, the best individuals that you want involved in your movements are the ones who are critical thinkers. That's the primary element that you want to impart to the people that are around you, because critical thinkers typically will expand a movement. They're very difficult to dismantle, because if you have a collective of dependent thinkers, then all you have to do is either eradicate the leadership or co-opt the leadership. And all of those dependent thinkers will follow along with whatever the leadership is doing. And a lot of times in certain organizations, you have individuals who profess to have more of the answer than anyone else in the world. There's nowhere else, and there's no one else in the world that's doing any type of work of significance other than the organization that they started. And typically the doctrine of said organization, no one will know better than that particular quote unquote leader. You see, these are all signs that you got to look at and say, something might be fishy. Something might be fishy. Or a lot of times, the teachings that are given in very strict isolation. There's only certain rituals and activities that are open to the members of said organization. And a lot of times, this is because the doctrine is so weak that it can't stand in the face of the critical thinking of the public. Sometimes with certain thought forms and certain ideas, we push and move to abstractionism much sooner than we actually should. Or we start our thought process with abstractionism, as opposed to starting our thought process from a scientific perspective. We take our knowledge and we hold the sacredness of our knowledge over the scientific and quantifiable value of our knowledge, which messes us up. You see? So, because sometimes we don't know the difference between what is sacred. Oh, I'm breaking up. Here we go again. All right, give me a second, you all. I'm going to try to fix it. Just give me a second. All right, let me try to fix it. I'm sure Blog Talk is clear. Give me a second. All right, I'm working on it. Give me a minute. Okay, beautiful. I'm being told it's good now. Not to interrupt our Eshu invocation, but I saw the messages. Yeah, so good thing I kind of keep. I'm gonna end up making myself cross-eyed because I kind of keep one eye closed and one eye on the chat just to see if those little breakup notifications come through. But thank you for letting me know. Thank you for letting me know that it was breaking up. Because like I said, there's nothing worse than speaking for 20 or 30 minutes and then coming back and then listening and it's yeah, so give thanks for that. But yeah, so just speaking about that idea now, the whole idea of sometimes what we end up indoctrinating ourselves into in terms of our thinking and our modalities, and a lot of times we're not able to recognize this static. So there's still static. Okay, all right. So it's getting it's clear and then it's going bad again. I'm guessing. Let's see. Let's try something here. Let me know how that sounds, if it sounds any better now. Let me know if it sounds any better. And if it doesn't, I have another solution I could use, I think, hopefully. There's also a delay, too. So some of y'all who come in and say that it's sounding bad, I think, see now, one says I sound fine, one says I break up. Yeah, there's like delays in the YouTube feed. I think sometimes, so you might be hearing 5 minutes prior when it was breaking up, so yeah, I don't know. We'll fine tune it as time goes on, or maybe the technology will just grow to the point where this will just stop happening. Okay, so everybody's telling me it sounds good. Now, I bet you with all this, it sounds good. Somebody's going to jump in and say, Chief, you're breaking up. Then it's going to say, you sound good. So, but thank you though. Either way, it helps, to kind of get an idea of that. I'm going to have to play around with the settings a little bit. Like I said, it a lot of times these little issues occur because I'm broadcasting simultaneously, and I'm using a little trick on my end, some little nerdy tech stuff. So splitting that signal like that down the bandwidth, it causes those issues. And I notice YouTube always seems to be the victim of it. Blog Talk seems to stay pretty clear, ironically, but Blog Talk does the other stuff like drop calls and tell people $1 a minute for the phone calls, stupid stuff like that. So we're gonna get it together. It's a process. And gotta respect the process. But yeah, I was speaking about the idea a lot of times of these isolated experiences that some of these organizations or people really try to promote and put us all through. And oftentimes they will immediately hold up their information as sacred. And once you say something is sacred, then you remove it from the opportunity of being scrutinized. Like it's like if I say something like this, to give you an example, we'll take let's say taxes. So we'll take taxes. Everybody knows what taxes are. You pay taxes. So we'll say something like taxes are a product of the evil Anunnaki establishment, and essentially they're demonic, right? So someone will say something like that. They'll create, and I guarantee you, if I did that video, it'd be one of my, because I got other videos, I got huge views. That'd be one of my huge views in videos, right? Doesn't require a whole lot of thought, you see, but we're immediately creating an abstract idea prior to validating the idea itself. We immediately move into a space of abstractionism. And when you have a lot of times and people who are presenting ideas and thoughts like that, one of the ways that they're able to do it, again, like I said, is to maintain this idea of hidden superiority. And even a lot of times their followers will maintain this idea of hidden superiority. So when you're speaking to them, even outside of the group, nothing really gets through, because they have this sense of no matter what you say, their mission is basically to recruit you. Okay, so they're listening only to find their angle of recruitment, because they have, again, this sense of hidden superiority that they're not going to reveal to you, because a lot of times in many of these groups, there's a lot of condemnation that goes on. There's a desire that every member has to completely expose themselves, whereas the leader kind of stays beyond reproof. And I've told you all many a times that I'm no leader. Okay, even though I've had people tell me, I beg to differ, Chip. You could beg to differ all you want. I am not a leader, and I'm no leader of Anu. I'm a leader of my family. That's it. But I am a chief and a coordinator. That's not the same thing as a leader. Okay? But what happens is that a lot of times there's an environment created where there's no moments for opposition when it comes to the leadership. There's, and any real movement has to have moments where followers, if you want to use that word, or supporters can not only employ and utilize their critical thinking, but even challenge the supposed leadership or the supposed authorities in a respectful manner. Now, the problem this is where it gets a little tricky. In our culture, as indigenous or melanoid people, is that a lot of times we don't have the base respect. So we always are challenging those who are presenting something, even if they're not coming from a leadership perspective. Usually we challenge those who try to help us the most. Those who really represent authority, we don't challenge at all. But the ones who are actually trying to put their hands out and help us and guide us and show us some love, those are the ones that we oppose the most. So there's already a lot of times coming into even your conscious groups, there's already a high degree of brainwashing that we're already coming in with. You see, there's a high degree of programming already, and it's very difficult to recognize, or maybe even sometimes to acknowledge, honestly, because we feel like, well, listen, I know more than what's going on out here. I'm conscious. Well, that's a part of your brainwashing, because you feel a superiority to anyone else who doesn't claim your flag. If a person says I'm not conscious, I'm not RBG, or if they don't say, you know, I'm culturally invested, I'm ethnically invested, or whatever term you want to use, then immediately one may look down upon them. So now again, there's that hidden sense of superiority. And a lot of times in some of these groups, you have these quote unquote leaders who will instill this sense of superiority because it helps them for several reasons. Employing these type of tools and these methods, it keeps membership up. Because a lot of times individuals who have this I don't want to say a sixth sense, but this sense of or this desire to reform the thought or co-opt the thoughts of others, they actually need individuals to support whatever it is that they're trying to do. So a lot of times you have individuals that would do this for economic reasons. They need the economic support of the people. So the first way they usually approach people, they have to dismantle their current identity, their personal identity, and their current thought structure and format. All right. And what they also have to do is to make them a huge promise. You know, they got to promise real big. So, for example, they'll say something like let's say if we're marketing a spiritual thing, and we'll say, you know, learn this spiritual practice, or learn these spiritual knowings, or this spiritual wisdom, so that you can change the world, right? Or so that you can be the solution to the world's problems. And people will look at that and say, wow, you know, or you look at some of the advertising that's used for the military. They use the same type of mind control propaganda, you know, become an army of one. You know, so this one person, you basically they use it even in movies. You're going to save the world. This one person, you're going to be the solution to the world's problems. You see, and I know in me saying that, I'll probably get thumbs down on this video. Well, actually, usually I only get thumbs down when the video is really good. First off, thumb downs come from two places. One, from titles of the videos, because most people who give videos thumbs down, those come like as soon as we put the video up. That means they ain't even listen or watch the video. They just saw the title, didn't like the title, put a thumbs down. And the other one comes when someone really, really, really likes what I said, then they thumb it down. That's an indication that you really just said something effective when people hit the dislike button. Okay, because you know, a lot of time passively, because of the mind control mechanisms, passively, if somebody says something that makes sense to us and we like it, we'll just hit the like button. Like, yeah, cool. But there's another mechanism inside of us where if someone says something that really propels us to action, into movement, there's a discomfort that occurs inside of us. So we'll dislike it. We don't like what you're saying, because what you're saying is going to make me actually have to motivate into doing something that makes sense, you know, or into changing my life even. So dislike. So there's a way, you got to know how to read that stuff, you know, the likes and the dislikes and stuff like that. I don't really pay too much attention to it. But that is something I know about the psychology of people. You know, you're always going to get dislikes. A lot of times people will put up videos like things that you just can't not like. You know, it'll be a child singing or something, or saying something positive. There'll be dislikes. Well, why? And then, you know, people will comment, who the heck disliked this video? You know, be cursing them out because, yeah, something about that video moved something in them. They didn't like how it felt, you know. But so yeah, when someone really, really, really likes something, they're gonna hit the dislike button. That's just the nature of people. But like I said, you know, a lot of times these people, like I said, I was watching that or listening to that video rather of that individual and presenting this total solution We need to do this. We need to do that. A lot of times the solutions are presented very much in isolation. So someone will say, I was told that once about EFI. Matter of fact, when I first came into EFI, I was dealing with other type of systems. As some of you may know, I've shared not my total story, but you know that I've worked with other systems and still do work with other systems. And I remember the actual Babalawo at the time who was telling me that I was Omo Ifa in a reading, child of Ifa, and that I was supposed to be a Babalawo at some point. And at that particular time, I was working real heavy with native systems, native to this soil. Some of you may call Indian, but I call First Nation or Native. So that was my main that was my main weapon of choice, working with a lot of the native the native systems, the Cree, because my family is Cree, and a lot of the Cree techniques, and also some of the Lenape nations as well. I was working with their techniques as well. So when I came into but I always knew about Santeria, Lukumi, and Ifa. I just I was okay. But when he said that to me, I was like, okay, cool. I was like, well, I don't remember what I said, but I said something to the effect of like, well, I'm learning many different things, because he had criticized the fact that I was assimilating so much information from so many different places, and he felt that that wasn't the right way to go. And he said, well, E5 is a complete system. You don't need anything else. And it always stuck out in my mind, that conversation, because it was spooky to me. It was a spooky conversation. We were in his shrine, underground, and he was like, "This is a complete system. You don't need anything else." And I was like, "Nah, I'm not feeling that. Nope." And you're talking to someone who has gone through the system. It's still in the system. It's not a complete system. There's other things that need to be addressed. No system is complete in that sense. So a lot of times when you have individuals trying to present themselves like that, and I'm speaking about Anu as well, it's not complete. That's why the mission is to create critical thinkers, not necessarily to create adherents or to create disciples per se. You're always going to have disciples when you have something of value. You need disciples. Don't get me wrong. Disciples are necessary, but you don't want to necessarily aim to go out and to create disciples. You see, disciples are what keep a system going. You see, but you're also going to need critical thinkers who challenge the leadership at times. When thoughts come up or when they see anomalies and they say, well, they told us to do this thing, but they're doing this other thing. You have to be able to be in a situation where you can question in a way that's respectful. Now, some people don't know how to do that respectfully, and that gets extremely exhausting in this work. That gets really draining when you have people who are only hell-bent on dismantling whatever's been put in front of them. Like sometimes questioning leadership in public is discouraged. I don't particularly have an issue with being questioned in public, but I do have an issue when people who are not qualified to question in public try to do that. And what I mean by that is this. If you're willing to attempt to dismantle or even embarrass me in public, be ready to be embarrassed. Because if you say something that's wrong or off, and I check you or correct you, say nope, and I prove you wrong in that, you got to be okay with being proved wrong in public. And a lot of times you don't get the two together. Someone will have something so tight they believe in their mind that I've seen this in the middle of lectures where people will jump up and hold on, you can't say that because such and such, such and such. And then when you say, wait a minute, and then you break it down on them where they're wrong, then they accuse you of trying to humiliate them. That's the mind control, though. So what comes along with that is condemnation and shaming tactics. You see, part of the mind control and the brainwashing, which I've spoken about, is this idea that we have about melanoid men, or melanoid males, and how we're going to approach them and consistently encroach upon their personal boundaries and remove all decorum when it comes to dealing with them. And then when one has self-respect and says, wait a minute, you can't do that. You can't talk to me like that. No, you can challenge me. You can oppose my viewpoint. Sure, no problem. But, you can't violate my personal lines of respect. That's not right. Then whenever that happens, we want to call it something else. Oh, he's arrogant. He's this, he's that. Basically saying he's uppity. That's basically what we're saying. Primarily because of where we're getting that from. Where we're getting that idea from. Where we're getting the notion from that, it's the brainwashing. It's the thought reform. You see. So we remove critical thinking. Critical thinking would tell us, okay, let's say if a person's a car engineer, a person can build and design a car inside and out. Basic good sense and critical thinking would tell you that if you can't do that, don't know anything about that, then that person probably knows more about cars than you do. But you'll have people who will argue with a person like that about cars. You see, I had that happen to me on the continent not too long ago. There was a situation where a sister had to present some offerings to the water, and she owns a space where there was another sister I had to bring to another sister, and one of the sisters owns a space where you can get like right up to the water. It's a nice place to give offerings. So I called her up. I said, listen, I'm gonna send someone your way. They need to do some spiritual work. Boom, boom, boom. Now this is a woman who comes to me for ebos, work, readings, so forth and so on. Life was a total mess. Over in the continent, had people putting hexes on her, poisoning her food, all kind of stuff. Before I came along, cleaned all of that up. So she's saying, well, before she does the offering here, she needs to give a chicken. I said, no, she doesn't. She said, oh, yes, she does, because that's what I had to do when I came to give an offering one day, and that's what the spirits wanted. And when I didn't do that, I got into a lot of problems. So I just kind of got silent for a moment, and I said, okay, I don't have a problem again with my leadership being challenged. Well, once it's proven that I know what I'm talking about, stop doing that, because that's it. Now after that, it just becomes annoying. So I had to say to her, and I had to like whisper to her, and walk to another place and say, I'm the one who taught you about chickens and ebos, and I'm the one who told you how to work at the water. So what are you trying to teach me right now? And whenever there's a problem, you don't know what to do, you come to me and ask me what to do. So what are you doing in this moment right now? And she kind of caught an attitude, older sister. And I said, all right, well, listen, I'm going to send her by. Suffice it to say, it didn't work out. Sister went to go do the offerings, and something happened. It was just not a good space to be in. So a lot of times we don't know how to challenge authority because we have a fictitious sense of our own grandeur. And it's, again, the programming. So you could have someone who's teaching you something for years, getting your life together and all of that, but the brainwashing and your previous thought reform still kicks in. Like I said before in another segment, no matter what I say a lot of times, I'm still just a dumb nigga. That's the perception. You could say Baba, Chief, all that. I'm still a dumb nigga. So that programming is going to supersede any critical thinking that would say, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to learn, or for me to grow, and for me to humble up to the moment and the experience. Now that's not the same as brainwashing. That's not the same as trying to bring someone under authority mindlessly. Because again, if you really want to grow your movement or your organization, the best thing to have inside of your organization are critical thinkers, people who are going to think independently, because critical thinkers keep things alive. Critical thinkers typically, when they're focused on the value and the thought patterns of their own individualistic culture, what they tend to do is look out for the culture and the liberty of other people. Critical thinkers. You find typically mindless drones, zombies, uninformed citizens. They don't care about anyone else. Look at any zombie film. When's the last time you seen a zombie help another zombie? You see, it just, that's removed. That sense is removed, when they have that hive mind in that sense. But when you have an organization and you're developing critical thinking, and when I say an organization, I'm speaking about even a family. One of the greatest things that you can give to your children is the gift of critical thinking. Greatest things. Above all the roller skates and, movie trips and vacations, give them the gift of critical thinking. You see, because with that, they can go into any situation, even a situation that is hell-bent upon mind control. They can go into that situation and still have a healthy balance. You can send them to a university, because universities are cesspools of mind control. Ran by professors who are mind controlled. But they're a cesspool of the idea that there has to be a total buy-in to something. And a lot of times, especially when you get higher up at the doctorate level, it's not even about really the work that you do. It's about the relationship that you form with the actual instructor. It's about how much you validate their theories, no matter how wrong their theories are. When you become oppositional, and when you get to the graduates level, the master's level, opposition becomes a huge problem. Opposition can put you in a situation where you'll have a professor say, you know what, just drop out of my class, quit my class. You shouldn't be here. You see, because at the master's level, you're trained by those who are deeply entrenched in thought reform. You're not going to have those professors a lot. There's rare occasions. They usually don't last long, by the way. But you usually not going to have those professors who are going to have a mind where they're going to help students go against the system and march and rally and things like that. You might here and there, but for the most part, that's not really what's going to happen. You see? So sometimes we even carry that form of thinking into our conscious information or to our conscious experiences, where there has to be a total buy-in. And again, there's a kind of an isolating that we do with people. So if you join my organization or my movement, you can't talk to your family, your friends too much unless you're bringing them in to this situation. And again, a lot of times that's because the information that we're presenting is so pseudo scientific that, we'll call it sacred information, but it's so pseudo that we know that it won't stand up in the face of anyone else's real critical thinking. We know that inwardly, so we have to keep it quiet. You look, I don't want to speak about anybody's religion or anything, but you could see this. Just look at the advertisements for religions. That'll tell you everything. If the initial intention is to promise something so huge that it can't be delivered, and to dismantle the way you're currently thinking, you got to raise an eye. You got to look at it a certain way. The presentation here, what I knew is not going to solve all the world's problems. I've seen even some videos where people say like, oh, polygamy will solve the problems in the black community. No, it won't. Polygamy is not going to solve all the problems in the black community. Vegetarianism is not going to solve all the problems in the black community. Even knowledge of self does not solve all the problems in the black community. And we're only talking about the black community. We're not talking about the world yet. You see, I'm just talking about the microcosm of a community of people. Those three things that many people tout, the way we eat, the way we mate, those are not the total solution. The total solution has to be compared with other solutions and compared with other forms of thought that exist in the world in order to test it for validity and to see that if it can work outside of the bubble of our own small context. You see, when you have these brainwashing movements, that's not allowed. You know, you go to some organizations, no windows, things like that. Again, not citing anything because I don't want anyone to feel like I'm getting on one religion or anything like that. And peace to everyone in the chat room. I see you all are there and speaking. Fase, Madam Ma'at, Vivid Eye Productions, Sister Marva, Sister Michelle, Brother Byron, Brother Justin, Brother Anwar, Sister Yolanda, Shaga Zulu, Sister Jennifer, Deanna, Nicole, Diana, Keith. All right, I probably missed some people in there, but Nicole, yeah, I said Nicole. So Nicole 2X, Sister Cheryl, Omega, Nahum, all right, Brother Haru, Antonio, Teely, Akili, all right, and whomever I may have also missed. Good morning to you all. See, Brother Byron has said, I had the same conversation with one of my sons yesterday. I had to remind him it was totally fine to challenge me, but he is in no way to level any form of disrespect to me, not on my land. Exactly. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear, Brother Byron. And that gets very tricky because some people don't know the fine line between being oppositional or challenging one's thought, you know, and disrespecting one's authority or disrespecting one's place. You know, it's very difficult. And again, if you don't have a Baba to say, listen, yeah, this is fine, you can do this, but you can't do it like that. You know, there's an order, there's a way to do things, there's a way to speak to people. And the bottom line is there's many different people in the world, and we have to learn how to deal with each other. And what I mean by that is that's a form of thought reform and mind control when you assume that you can approach everyone the same exact way. When you don't actually take the time out to find out. It's just like when you meet someone, you may say to them, you know, what do you like to be called? You may ask them that question, you know, or they may their name may be Mr. Jackson, and then at some point they say, "Oh, you don't have to call me Mr. Jackson. My name's John. You just call me John." You know, so you're taking that time out to form a real relationship to learn how to behave with each person. But when you superimpose how you want to be with each person, it's very disrespectful because you're not, what's disrespect? Not seeing the source. You're not seeing the person. You're only seeing what your mind control tells you to do with anyone because you have a hidden sense of superiority. You see? Now, so many of us walk with that and we're not even as aware of it, or we don't really care. Because in the Anglosphere, in this society, that type of behavior is rewarded. That type of obnoxiousness and arrogance is rewarded. To just trample upon people's boundaries, that's rewarded. You see, and then like I said, when you have someone like myself, I'm just going to use myself as an example, who'll say, nah, you can't talk to me like that. You out your mind? You know, they say, oh, whoa, what? What do you mean I can't talk? You know, now I'm the one who's disrespectful or uppity or whatever. No, it's called self-respect. Everyone needs to have a little bit of it, you know, or a lot of it. And when you have that sense of self-respect, man, then you let people know how you want to be treated. And, you know, every relationship that you have with a person is a linkage. It's a tie. It's a contract. So you say, these are the terms of the contract. And if the person is consistently saying, no, I'm not abiding by the terms, then you rip up the contract. Remember, every relation that you have with an individual in this world is one that you create through your own thought projection. Every person in this world is one that you create through your own thought projection. You see, so if you have a person that's consistently violating you or attempting to violate you or going over your personal boundaries, it's because that's what you created. You wanted that somehow, some way within the deepness of your psyche. And then that's what you contracted for. And as long as you allow it to persist, that's the contract you're making with the universe. Until you say, you know what, whatever bridge it is that you're getting over to disrespect me like that, I'm going to have to burn it. For some of us, sometimes that means changing phone numbers, blocking, phone numbers, blocking emails, ignoring people, moving, changing jobs, whatever it is. But no, I'm not going to allow this pathway between us to continue this. And again, a lot of times that comes as a result of a perverted sense of authority, because people who are under the spell of brainwashing and mind control, they perpetuate that further out. And a lot of times, like I said, that brainwashing and mind control, it's not just something that happens on a military base somewhere in Arizona. It happens when you go to school and you're given a complete buy-in. You're told to pledge allegiance to a piece of cloth, or you're told you have to do this way, and everyone has to do this way in order to end up with this result. You see, so when you see that the aberration, when someone says, well, no, because there's critical thinking in place, I think we could do it this way, that's the person that gets condemned and ridiculed. You see, and a lot of times, like I said, our sense of thought or our sense of information sometimes is so pseudo that we have to slap the sticker of sacred on it. This is sacred information. That way it can't be touched. That way it can't be looked at and scrutinized. And everything should be looked at and scrutinized. That's why the way I teach, when you hear me speak about mythology, I break it down to you by formula. I'm not sitting here. If you want to hear fairy tales and stuff, that's cool. I mean, that's fun to listen to. Don't get me wrong, but take the mythology and the ideas that your ancestors gave to you and put the science to them. Put the science to them. And some things, if they don't hold up, put them to the side right now. Don't preach things just because you think they're sacred. Our minds are sacred. Our value of critical thinking is sacred. I see Vivid Eye Publication says, yeah, I remember myself long ago having to pump my brakes and say to self, bro, you can't save or change everything. Get yourself a little bit straighter from your crooked self. Yeah. But that's the idea, again, of mind control. You can save the world if you just follow our system. If you just go to our new spiritual training, phase 1 through 3, you'll be able to save the world. You'll be like an angel. You'll be like a god. No, you won't. You'll be on your way to whatever it is that you're supposed to be and whatever it is that you came down here to solve, which most likely only you know. Although I do know it for some of y'all, but that's another thing. All right, I'll speak to you all tomorrow. That has been our segment. All right. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll be on tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, going deeper into this concept a little bit. All right. Until such time, everyone travel safe today. Peace.